Okay, so Zoom seems to be stuck, but eventually may wake up. Come on. Okay, now I think it works. Good. So what I want to do today is return on the topic of images because of homework 5 essentially, and also to give you some simple recipes. So I want to do, I think, three things. First, I want to give you a simple way to upload images and download them using entirely Ajax. It's a variation on what we have seen already in class. Then I want to do a variation of this variation to show you an alternative and discuss pro and cons. And then I want to talk more about how we would do it using the cloud, because the solution I will do initially is a bit simplified, and I want to talk more about how to actually do this relying on the cloud if we were to do it for real. Essentially, the two initial solutions will rely on the database, whereas the solution I want to present later relies on Google Cloud Storage, which is better. I posted a lesson in detail before Thanksgiving about how to move code to the Google Cloud. Okay. I hope you watched it. I think it's extremely useful. It's one of the best ways to host your project for the final project presentations. Okay. So, do you have any questions on it? Actually, I plan to discuss it more also the day after this one, so Friday. But do you have any concern on it, or do you have any questions about that class? No. How many of you watched it? The class on cloud that I posted on YouTube. So you watched it, and nobody else did. Okay, that's an interesting way for me to spend, basically 6 or 7 hours. I had to do 2 takes. So maybe that's not a productive way for me to. But watch it. So if I can do a little bit of advertisement, there are various ways of making your work available to others. The simpletons essentially take a physical server or the Linux desktop that they may have under a desk, and put a website on it, which means it's neither protected from crashes nor is it scalable. So the lowest rank is as if you say, I don't know how to deploy code, and so I do it on my own server. The one ladder up the rank is to say, well, at least I don't use my own PC, but I get a virtual machine in a data center so that at least it's backed up. And you do it there, which is not scalable, but at least it's backed up. That's a sort of, when you're not a total noob, but you're like one level up in the rank, and you're sort of, just a novice that doesn't really know how to build anything that can scale. And instead of the way I taught you in a fairly simple way, so it's not very complicated what I did in that class, but takes you immediately to the level of the semi-pros, because by doing that, if you follow that class, you're able to host your code in a way that is both backed up, but also fully scalable with complete logs, and you essentially could deploy a very large utilization website for it. And I tell you because I know, because I've done it multiple times. And so it's, if I might say, a bit foolish on your side that you don't take advantage of these bits of knowledge, because there is a lot of web developers around there that call themselves web developers because they can somehow hack up code and put it on some server somewhere. And instead, the real web developers that are able to use to leverage the cloud to build solutions that are stable, scalable, etc., they're much more prized. And you can convert from one level to the other, at least to some extent, via 1 hour and a half of watching. Okay, so I highly recommend it. Now the pitch is over, right? But now you know how to do the transition from beginner to slightly more masterful developer. So let me get to the problem at hand, and we'll talk more about the cloud on Friday. But please watch that video by Friday, because otherwise I will be wasting my breath on Friday, right? If I talk about things you should know. I mean, it's really worth knowing because it's such a painless way. Okay, let me give you some metric of how painless it is. We were able to do a startup that responds to hundreds of queries per second and takes between hundreds and thousands of images per second in 3 people based on essentially variations of that technology. We could have all the scaling done for us, all the storage done for us, and we just cared about writing code. And we could just, once the new versions of code worked, we were just able to put them on the cloud, and we were just able to shift the traffic to it. No, I mean that's quite amazing for scalability. Try to do that with the old-fashioned way of having some even virtual servers, but separate servers in the cloud. You would simply not succeed. Look back. I mean, I know that now Snapchat is, so some people dislike the way they changed their UI, and so they lost a bit of traction and whatever else. But they started really fast with a really small team. They also were based on this technology. So, it's not trivial to do something like Snapchat at that scale for a team of how many were they at those times when they still had, maybe, when is that they passed the 50 million user mark? I don't know, were they 20 or 25 or something like that as a team, and it's not easy at all to get it done. So there is some value in leveraging these technologies. And I want you to watch this video, which is sort of the easy version, and I want to be able to talk about comparisons between these cloud technologies more on Friday. Okay. Now let me go back to to what I want to do today. So we had this small site. I'm sorry that it took me a bit of time to bring it up, but let me kill some of the non-useful things I have here running. This is the old code. Okay. So. I'm not sure I need to log in, or I can just say plus. Yeah, this just uploads an image. So the code is the same as I showed you last time. Okay, I can choose a file, and then this will upload it. I will not do it now because I want to modify the code, but I want to quickly walk through the various steps. Okay, so the code we had here worked as follows. We had an upload file function that listens to the event of you having chosen a file. Okay, when we listen to the change event of the input field, and when there is a detect a change, we call this upload file. And this upload file does 2 tasks. It uses a reader to read the file and render it as a data URL, and then it requests a cloud server I wrote 2 URLs, one for putting the file in the cloud and the other one for getting it later. Okay? Uses the first URL to do a request to put the file, and uses the second URL to notify our server that now the file is available there. Okay, so that's the code I had, and I commented on it at length. And now I want to modify, first to simplify it, and then to do something else slightly more sophisticated. The simplification is this. Assume that now we are building an app and you just have the database and you don't want to use the cloud, as it happens to be the case for homework 5. And what you want to do is actually upload a file in XML, in Ajax, and you're wondering what is the easiest way to accomplish that, okay? So to accomplish that, we have 2 choices, essentially. We see that once we grab a file, we can do 2 things with it. The first is here. We can define a new reader, a file reader. We can read the file, okay? And once we have the file read as a data URL, we can so a data URL is a base64 representation of the JPEG bytes, okay? And once we have a data URL, we can send to the cloud that data URL. A data URL has the advantage that it looks like a string and you can pass it via JSON to the cloud, okay? So that would be one possible way that we can upload a file, right? We have the file on disk, we call the file reader on it, which returns to us a data URL, which is a base64 encoded version of the file. Base64, I wonder if you all know what it means, but it means the following. A byte has 8 bits, right? And so has 256 possible values. And so many of those values are not characters that fit nicely in a string, right? At least as encoded by JSON. So what you do is this, to do a base64 encoding, you take that sequence of bytes, assume that you have 100 bytes, and you consider it is, instead of 100 bytes, you consider it 800 bits. And then you group those bits in groups of 6. chop, 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 chop. You know, you cut it in groups of 6. So you will have 800 divided by 6 groups of 6, right? And then you use the ASCII alphabet to encode those 64 characters. You know, 2 to the 6 is 64. And so you use capital letters, lowercase letters, which in English already gets you to 52. And then you use numerals, which gets you to 62. And then you use a couple of other characters and you get to 64. And in that way, you can encode any arbitrary bit string or byte string into printable characters that JSON is happy with. Okay, the price to pay is that if you byte 64 encode a URL or any byte string, you expand it by a factor of 4 divided by 3, right? Am I right or wrong? Yes, because it's 8 divided by 6, right? Because what before used to take 8 bits, now what before used to take only 6 bits now takes 8. And so that's like a 33% expansion of your storage, right? But the good thing is that now you have converted like a hot metal kind of thing, you know, these byte sequences is totally arbitrary in a JPEG. You have encoded it in a completely innocuous string of printable characters that you can happily store anywhere you want without worrying so much about quotations. You can send via JSON and etc. Right? So one choice is to send up this data URL that is 33% larger than you actually need, but is completely safe. The other thing that you can do is the following, and that is you can use this same method we have below of building an XML HTTP request and sending the file to it. This will stream the file up. Okay, so the two ways of sending the file are very different. In one case, we send a string in a single shot request as part of a put. Okay, because it becomes like a normal string, if long, that we can put up. In the other case, we do a streaming request. If you have a file of half a gigabyte, that's what you would like to do. You don't want to translate a file of half a gigabyte in a single string. Okay, but if you have a smallish file, but if you have a large file, instead you can stream it up without encoding it in a same string. Each way has its own advantages and drawbacks. So the advantage of a safe string is that it's easy to manipulate, right? When you receive it, you have it, and you can say, hey, let me shove it into the database, and I'm happy with it. And that's what I teach you how to do now. The advantage of doing the streaming upload is that you can deal with a much larger content. Okay, and if you're careful, you could even make sure that the upload is resumable, even though that takes some more work to do. But essentially, it's suited to much larger files. Here I want to cut through all the problems, essentially, and use the simplest solution. So I want to adapt this code and show you how it would look in the cloud as well. So the first thing that I'm going to do to this old code is the following. Let me do a different branch, by the way. So git checkout branch, and I call it image upload. Okay. So you will, I will not confuse the two pieces of code. So let's try to send the image up as a safe string. Okay. So all these pieces of code is useless now. Okay. So I just brutally remove it. And this as well, actually. So it's really a simplification. And what I'm doing is this. Wait, is there anything more? There is something in the chat. We could have commented it out, but don't worry, because I haven't really killed that code, because it's still in the other branch, right, of the repo, play with images, so you can still look at it. Yeah, right, I could have commented it out. Should I comment it out? Yeah, why not, actually? Now I go into conniptions because I don't know which choice to take, because later I will need it. So it's kind of easier if I comment it out. The person gave me a very good suggestion, actually. So let me comment it out. Okay, so this code is not needed anymore, and I can comment it out. Now, let me adapt this code. I remove so I create a reader, and then I add a listener to the reader, which so far, what it does, this listener, is that on the load function, it says self-vo image URL is equal to reader.result. Okay, so that's what we have so far. Once the reader has done reading that file in base 64, it gives us the data URL. Yeah? Which bracket? Oh, I commented out the, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem of, I may need to close one more, right? Something like this, because a self-upload file is equal to a function, and so this closes that, okay? Now, so if I do this, I've almost won, meaning that here, in this precise place in the code, I'm very lucky because I have with me the base 64 URL encoded data that can be used to represent the image. Okay, so all I need to do is put up that base 64 string in the cloud, and I can use a normal post request via Ajax to put out a string. So let me do that. I'm going to index.html because I want to define my URLs here. And so I want to say something like var image post URL is equal to, okay, and then here I put my URL helper, and I say API, I don't know, put image, okay. I guess post image actually, post image, and I think that's it. I mean, normally I would have to sign the URL, okay? But here I want to do things quickly. I've taught you many times already how to sign URLs and be logged in. And now in this case, I perhaps don't want to care for this particular class, okay? I just want to do the part that is immediately useful to the problem. So suppose I do this, I created this image post URL. Then here I can simply say $.post, and I can say to image post URL, okay, and here I have to post some data, and I noticed that many of you in homework have some problem in that, for example, people were wondering how to associate replies to the reply text to a particular reply or similar things. So you need to decide what to tell the server together with the post upload, right? What is the other information the server needs to know? So in this case, we can say that the image URL is going to be reader.result, okay? And also we can say something like, I don't know, image ID, and I can say null. And I can just comment this is a placeholder for more useful info. Or I can be even kinder, like I can say like post ID, if this image refers to a particular, like I don't know, like a blog post ID. No, I mean you can send that together with the image, any other parameter that may help you figure out where to put the image once you are on the server. In this case, we don't care, right? I mean, for this simple example, but in general, you would. Okay. In fact, instead of doing one, let me simply say that this is always equal to one. Okay. So if I do this, my life is particularly easy because on the server side, I can say something like this: def post image or image post. How did I call it? Post image. Thank you. Def post image. Normally, I would have to check that the URL is signed. In this case, I don't. And I simply say something like image string is equal to request vars image URL, I think I called it, right? How did I call it? Image URL, okay? And then I say blog post ID is equal to integer of request vars blog post ID. Okay. So, and I put commas here just because I'm still used to. And then normally here, oh yeah, you can see that I'm language confused. I'm sorry. Normally here, I would have to check that the user can store the image to the blog post, etc., etc. Okay, so normally here you would do some sanity checks. Okay, instead in this case I don't do any. Let me define a database table for the images, and so I define db define table my images. Okay, and I like blog. Sorry, I'm field. So here I need quotes. I'm a bit out of training. So field image string, and this is of type text because so it's gonna be unlimited in length, which is good, right? And then I have like field like a blog post ID integer. Okay, because should be a reference to a blog post, I guess. Okay, but you can do whatever you want. Essentially, I'm just defining a database table. And so once I have this database table called my images, I can do the following. I can say db let me just think. Db update or insert. Let me do something even simpler. I'm sorry. Let me just remove these. Okay, I only have that field, and then I have to say sorry. I put it back, I guess. Yeah, I think in the end, the update of insert is the best way. So db my images update or insert, and anybody can search the syntax for it. I think that there is first a query that says db my images blog post ID has to be equal to blog post ID. Okay, so this is the existence condition. And then I have to say blog post ID is equal to blog post ID. And then I have to say finally image string is equal to image string. Okay, can someone verify that I gave the that is called update of insert rather than insert of update? Because I always get it wrong. Is update or insert, and this is a syntax, right? You call it on the table, so you say db images update or insert, right? Okay, I'm sorry, but I get confused by these things as well as you do, and so I always need to look at that. But so if this does the job, return okay. We can test it, okay? Hopefully it will work. Let's see what happens now with this code. Let me reload the page. I press here, I choose a file, and here I should have so of course I particularly hate one second. Yeah, I don't have a good way of doing it, I guess. Okay, so I wanted to add a mark to erase. content. So here I'm looking for some image. So let's upload a rabbit. Okay, that should do. So I put the rabbit app. It might have worked. I was kind of silly. I should have done it while watching the network tab. I think it may not have worked. Okay, let me see a moment if there is any error in the console. Okay. Let me check also the server logs. Oh, actually, it did it. There's a request to server post image, so that should have happened. So maybe everything worked. I'm just a little bit confused. And so in the network tab, I have a post that actually succeeded. Okay. So this seems to work. The only thing that I'm wondering is why we don't see any change in the image URL, but it may be due to something else. Where did I put that image URL? If show image. So let me remove this if, if. Okay, so to make the code simpler, I want to check what happens. So let me send up another rabbit. Oh no, sorry, I made a mistake, right? I have to reload this page, otherwise nothing happens. So I send up a rabbit. Okay, and we see the rabbit. Okay, so the code works. It's just that the image was not displayed by a boolean. Okay, so up to this point, I have stored the image in the database in the corresponding position. Now, this is great, but now you wonder, how do I get the image I uploaded? Okay, so let me now make sure that the image will also appear, for instance, below these below this text. Okay, so let me do a little bit better coding here, and I wanted to have two images in parallel. The left image will be the one that appears after the preview, and the right image I want to fetch it from the server when I press a button. So let me do something more sophisticated to show you also how to download an image with Ajax, which is very useful to do. Okay, so I do div class is equal to container. Okay, so this enables me to have two divs. So I put, then I say like div class is equal to half, okay? And I have two actually of these halves, so I do this, right? And in the first half, I put the image that is bound via rule, right, from the reader. So this image is actually the one that is acting as preview. And in the other place, I will put something that has image vbind source is equal to a variable that is called the received image. Okay, so this is the image that we will receive from the cloud. Okay, and below I put a button that says button the on click is equal to get image. Okay, so where I want to make sure that when I press this button, like get image. No, we can get the image. Okay, so now what I want to do is write a bit of code that when we get this get image call, okay, we ask the server via an API method to give us the image and we return it to us. So essentially, these would be the two ways of the method, right? How to upload it and how to download it then. So to write this method, I go into the JavaScript and I say something like this. We have a new method that is called getImage, self getImage, okay? And we also have a new variable, which is how did I call it? Received URL, received image, received image, that at the beginning is null, right? Because we have not received any image, okay? So my task is now to write this self get image function. I can just write it here. Self get image is equal to a function of, we don't get any argument, we don't need it. And here I can say get JSON of, I'm sorry, I need to define my URL, I guess. No, so always define your URLs. Var image get URL is equal to, so we can use URL API get image, no? So just to, I'm keeping it very simple. And so the request will be get image URL. How did I call it? Yeah, get image URL. Okay, so right. So I give some data to it, right? And I want to say something like blog post ID is equal to 1. Okay, I'm pretending that I'm writing these in such a way that I have multiple images and I have to specify which one I want, right? Okay, and then I can say function data. I assume that I get an index back. Sorry, I forgot the comma. So I assume that I get a dictionary back. You know that my convention is always to receive dictionaries, and I assume that we have an image string in that dictionary. So I assume that here I can simply write receive the image is equal to data dot image string. Okay. So you follow the logic. I'm doing a get JSON. When I do the get JSON, I'm specifying some parameters, right? And the parameter I specify is that I want to get the image number 1. Okay. When I get the image number 1, I mean when I get a payload back, my convention is to always send back JSON dictionaries, right? So this will be decoded. So data will be a JSON object, okay, which has a field image string that I simply use to set the received image. And the received image is this field here, received image, so that the image should be displayed, right? So essentially, I decided to pass back and forth, rather than the raw JPEG bytes, this image URL encoded, right? Which is 33% larger, but makes for a far simpler manipulation. Okay? Is everybody with me up to this point? So all I need to do at this point is to write this function that will reply to this get image URL request. Okay? By returning the image string. So let's write it. It's not difficult. In fact, it's quite easy. And it works like this. Def get image. Okay, normally I would have to send the URL, but I don't care. And so again, I do blog post ID is equal to integer of request vars blog post ID. No, so I mean, just as before, right? And then I can say, well, I don't know, a row is equal to db dot my images of round parenthesis blog post ID. Now this these round parentheses, if you want to know why I'm using them, you should read quickly the database chapter. Essentially, if you use the square brackets, it works the same if the blog post ID exists. But this is using round parentheses is more tolerant of when there is. Oh, but no, I'm completely wrong. This is a wrong query entirely. I'm very sorry. My mind slipped. I need to do a real query here. Cancel, cancel. So db my images blog post ID, okay, is equal to blog post ID. I'm sorry. Select, and I get the first element. Okay, now these R can be null, and if R is none, no, let me say something like this better. Image string is equal to none. Okay, so I initialize it to none, and then if I find one, I return it. And I say if R is not none, so if I happen to have found it in the database, then I say image string is equal to record dot, how did I call it? I call it image string in the table, you see, this line here. So image string, okay. And then I can say return a response JSON. So I want to return my response in JSON. And I always want to return a dictionary. So I will say dictionary that contains image. How did I call it? What I was returning? I forget these things all the time. I call it image string. You see, it's on line 105 here. So I say image string is equal to image string. Okay, so that should be code that works. You get the idea, right? I always want to return a JSON object, so a dictionary in Python. So I return a dictionary with only one attribute, with only one field, image string, which is actually my image string. So you see, if you use this encoding for images, it makes it easy to pass it back and forth as few strings in JSON, which kind of makes your life very pleasant. Okay? Any complaints so far? Shall I test the code? Oh, I have. It's interesting to teach in the new media world. There's always something that buzzes or whatever. Okay, so let's test it. I reload, and maybe I should keep an eye on the console when I reload because things could break. Let's see if I see any complaint. No. Let me delete it so I get a bit more space, and maybe I want to keep an eye on the network. So, so this is the get image button. Why is it there? Because my window is not wide enough. Let me remedy that a moment, because otherwise it makes my life unpleasant. So it's half and it's compressible, right? The attribute I have to say. So let me see whether this improves my rendering. Yeah. Okay, fine. I can see one of the rest. So now I add an image. It will be again my rabbit. I'm sorry, but once I know that one thing works, we stick with it. Okay, so that's fine. And I posted the image, and it should be stored in the database. I have no idea, obviously, right? Now, if I press get image, boom, nothing happens. And I get an uncaught reference. Get image URL is not defined. So this means that essentially I've used here, I've used get image URL, but evidently here I've defined something else, which, yeah, of course, is image get URL. Yeah, so you get older but not wiser, it seems, right? Image get URL. Okay, fine. Let me try again, but at least you see how easy it ought to be to debug, right? So let me try again. I choose always my rabbit. Next time I should choose the rabbit back, I guess. Now I do a get image. Boom. And again something else breaks. No, come on. Eh? I thought I did. Let me look at, I mean, what does this return? It returns an okay, but the response is image string is equal to this string, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so everything seems to have worked, interestingly enough. Okay, so I really got my response. Okay, so everything works except that I get no rabbit. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this image is pretty big, I guess. So why don't I get a rabbit? What happens when I get the data? I say data image string, receive the image. And this is a declaration that I'm as smart as a tuna fish. I mean, a tuna fish is smarter, like if they live long. So this is not what I should have done, right? It's a self-boot, right? I mean, it's like a beginner's error. I assigned it to a variable, but obviously that variable had no effect. So, but you know, uh, at the third try, if I don't do any other silly thing, it might even work. Actually, it might even work that when I press get image, it gets my rabbit. No, because it's already stored in the cloud. So I don't need to upload another rabbit to get my rabbit back. So this works. Okay. Now, let me let me version this code so that you can go back to it. Git commit am JSON image upload and download. Okay, so this method of using JSON works actually pretty great for a lot of applications. If your image is not super large, this is a beautiful thing because imagine, for example, that you are building something like I don't know, Instagram. You know, I particularly hate how I cannot read Instagram images on my phone. I have friends who post really nice images, you know, very artistic photographs, and they like to me. But I can it's like a but so if you do something like that, if you have to send back a list of images, it's really very nice to do it in to be able to do it in JSON because you can build a list that contains, for example, post author, post text, how many likes it had, whatever other information you have, and then you can also say image string, and you provide the image right there, right? So, for example, when you browse your Instagram feed, you could upload the first 10 images there, right? And then I haven't taught you how, but there are ways of checking when you try to scroll below the last row of the page. And when that happens, you could tell the server, hey, you know, give me 10 more images. I mean, 10 more Instagram posts, right? You could get then 10 more, append them at the end of your array, and you would have done a very nice application. Notice that you can't do this in nearly as smooth a way if you store images as byte strings, because if you store images as byte strings, you cannot serve them as part of a JSON payload. So you cannot serve a list of stuff containing images encoded in raw bytes, right? The only thing that you could do is that you could serve someone a list of 10 posts, and for each post you could have an image URL that you would have to then separately call in JavaScript to actually fill the I mean that you would actually set the URL to that. Um, uh, okay, maybe I should try to do it rather than telling you how it is done. Okay, but it's more complicated. Okay, so for really large images. Yeah. So now let me go to a better solution for really large images. There are two real solutions. Okay, one in which I put them in the database, but that's kind of not great. Okay. So what would be instead a really good solution for the cloud? Okay. So if you were to design a real application. So let me do a sort of break in my lecture. This is what we did for homework 5. Okay. What I'm going to do now is taking a small break, so to say, mental break, and instead going into my cloud code and showing you how I can do it if I were building an application for the Google Cloud. Okay, but so this is what I've done is fairly simple, and is what is needed for homework 5. Okay, reset our minds, wake up the minds again, and now the minds are woken up in a state in which we have to do the following. We are writing our own cloud application, and we can talk to Google Cloud Storage. Okay, and so I want to do a variation of what I had in Play with Images before. And the variation should work as follows. I want to be able to do the following complicated piece of code. And it's not complicated, but it works in this way. When you want to upload an image, just as before, I will request the server for a put URL to Google Cloud Storage, a signed URL to do the upload, and then I will upload it. Okay. Contrary to before, so before I was getting also a get URL that I could store in the database. Okay. What is the problem of the get URL? So here I want to do something slightly more sophisticated, but this is kind of useful and important. So let me go there, otherwise it doesn't record well. Before I was getting two URLs, I put URL to upload it and I get URL to download it back. What is the drawback of doing that? The drawback is this, that the get URL is signed. And if you look at the details of the code, I signed it with a validity of 1 year, which is both bad in two different ways. 1 year is too long to prevent people from stealing images from your site or stealing bandwidth, right? Ideally, if you are logged in, I would like to give you a URL that works for 1 day, but I want to make sure that that does not become a permanent reference to that image, because maybe you have access to that image only when you are signed in and other things, right? So this is the first bad thing. I don't want to give you a signed URL that quite has that long duration. On the other hand, 1 year is too short, because if if you're uploading images to Google Photos and then you have a URLs or access to those images for only 1 year, you would be extremely annoyed, obviously, right? So the solution I presented to you is fairly suboptimal in two ways. So I want to modify it in the following way. You still have an upload URL, but the server remembers then the image name, a random name that was given to the image. Okay? When you request to download the image, the server quickly computes a URL on the fly for you to use each time. Okay? So let me do these changes. I don't think we will finish today. We will just start, but Friday we will continue. And this is actually a nice way for you to see the cloud in actual use, right? I have two applications. Instead of being in this one, I go to my cloud applications. You see, I have another directory that is ready for deployment on Google Cloud. Let me check in which branch I am. I have many branches, as you can see. I'm in this branch, which I think is going to be the right one. Let me call it up, the code. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this was the cloud application of the uploader. And I'm now pretending for this case that I'm designing the whole site. So I not only designed this uploader code, but I designed the whole application myself. Okay, so now I will open also my index and copy the code. I'm sorry, I'm slow at finding things, especially as these are not my real glasses, I guess. So let me just copy the index I had here. Okay, so just to to make things simple, I want to do a similar application to the one before. Okay, and in fact, let me also copy here something I did not have before, and that is in static.js. I want, this is essentially just the default one, and I want to have my same download code. You see, I'm putting essentially the cloud and the client on the same application, so that I'm pretending I'm building my own application for the cloud. Okay, so default index.js. Sorry, I'm a bit okay. So I copy these. I don't want to know about problems. Okay. Okay. And now I also want to build checkpoint. Git checkout branch, and we can call it image upload cloud, the branch we're using today. Okay. Hey. Oh. No, I have multiple applications and I made the change in the wrong one. Oh, eh? No, I mean, everything works. 1 second, 1 second. Yeah, it's a server. So yeah, I think I've opened entirely the wrong place. I cannot simply rebase, unfortunately. I really did my changes in the wrong place. It's a worse thing. No, but this is the correct one. No, I'm sorry. I think I made the changes in the right place. Okay, no, I'm safe. I made the changes in the right place. I'm just in the wrong directory here. So it's, you see, I have many, the one I need is this one. Okay, in fact, here I changed the index HTML and default index.js. Okay. Git check branch image upload cloud. Okay, sorry about the momentary confusion. Okay, git commit am stat of work. Okay, so this is a pretty good starting point. Let me so let me remove this code that was doing the image post of the JSON, okay, and let me put back this code that instead was doing the image upload of the binary file. Okay, so there are also these two things to remove. Okay, and so we are back to the situation. So let me recap a moment. Here is the part that is taking care of the preview. Okay, but now we actually say we get JSON to this long URL that in this case I can simplify, but we are saying get upload URL. Okay, so since now this is our own get upload URL, let me simplify this code a little bit. I can define my upload URL var get upload URL. Okay, because now it will be our same server that provides it to us, and so I can say that this is a URL that has API. Actually, I have it already as the uploader, right? Uploader. And the method was already called in Uploader. It is this method here, right? It's called get upload URL. Get upload URL. Okay. So the important difference is this, that compared to what we were doing before, so this is a get upload URL. Compared to what we were doing before, there is going to be this difference, okay? Before I was getting a put URL and a get URL. No, okay. Let me think. Now I want to get instead a put URL and I want to get like an image ID. Okay, so I don't want I don't want to get a pre-signed get URL that is valid 1 year. I want to know the name of the image, and I want then the server to sign to give me a URL for downloading that image that will last, say, half an hour or 1 hour, whenever I want to access that particular image. Okay, so I want to say image. I guess is image name. We might as well call it. Okay. And so from here on, once I have the image name, I can say, so this part is still identical, okay? And the only thing is that now I will have an image name, which I should define as variable, okay? As the identifier of the image itself. Where did I define it? I don't know where I defined it. Okay. Let's worry about that later. In the uploader, look at how the uploader was working. This get upload URL function, and then I do this, then I stop the class and we continue next time. This get upload URL was doing this. It was inventing an image path. Okay, this image path essentially completely identifies the image, right? It's like an image name that is valid forever, but you cannot use it to get the image per se, because the URL is not signed. But so I will return to you the signed URL, but instead of the access URL, I will return the image name is equal to image path. Okay? And I no longer need to sign a get URL for a whole year. So this code I commented out because it will be useful to us later. Okay? I also don't need this particular line. Okay? Because I don't need to make this service available from everyone. I will make this service available only for my own site. You know, you will be able. This is internal. I'm not putting up a service for everybody to use anymore. This is now the same site to which has access to Google Cloud Storage and to which you are uploading an image. Okay, so let's see what happens if I run this code and then I stop. Okay, but if I run this code, well, I need to run it first of all. And so I need to stop running the old version. You know, we are in a different, okay, actually, let me not run it because we are close, we are 1 minute over time. The problem why I cannot directly run it is this. This code now needs to be run in the cloud for me to be able to do this signing business of the URLs. And so I need to deploy it to the cloud in order to work correctly, right? Or else I need to a different setup for debugging it. So I want to get into that next time. But so the idea of what I'm doing, just to recap, is the following. When I want to upload an image, the server will invent an image name and will give me a signed URL to store it, and then it will tell me what is the image name. Okay. Once the image is uploaded, I have this image name that will be, you know, a short string like yada yada.jpg. And when I want to actually display that image, I will have to ask the server, hey, please, can you give me a signed URL for yada yada.jpg? The server will give me a signed URL for Google Cloud Storage. I will be able to set that in an image tag, and so I will be able to display the image in that fashion. Automatically, when you set the source field of an image tag, the browser says, oh, wow, now I have a URL, and it does you the favor of automatically starting the download of the image from that URL and the display. Okay, so that is essentially what we will be doing next time. Okay, thank you.